Yo, Dragon Ballers, what's going on? It's your boy Frisco Fahs here with FOE PPG, showing off another deck profile. Just came back from Indiana yesterday, played in the webcam tournament today. Want to show some results, show this cool Soul Striker Galactic Busted deck. Got a lot of feedback. Everyone wants to see what this deck was about. I got second place at the Indiana Regional Full 64 uh, webcam tournament. I went X2. I didn't finish the last 3 rounds because it's Father's Day. I want to go spend time with the fam. Yeah, and I'll go over the the matchups at the end and kind of like where the deck struggles at, and living the best of one life there. So first, Soul Striker. So this deck is Soul Striker, the reboot. What this leader does, if you don't know, when you attack, swing, draw a card, or you can untap an energy. Haven't untapped an energy yet, but you can. The cool thing is you awaken when you have a Unison specified cost of 3 in play. You can pay 3, play your Unison, untap, draw 2, then you swing with a leader. And then the awaken side is when every time you swing, you untap 2 mono blue energy. So it's really good. He's basically draw 2, untap 2, and it can awaken at any life total. Doesn't have to take it down a certain amount of life, so you can stay at 8 life if you really want to. And he's just a really good generic leader. He's probably the best generic blue leader that we have right now. So let's go over the deck profile itself and go over what this deck does. First, I want to go over the main premise of the deck. Galactic Buster. This card is busted. So basically what this card does is if you have a battle card in your energy, say in rest mode, you play this for 0 energy. You combo with the free 10k, right? This draws you a card, so you draw a card, and you get the free floating energy. If you don't use the energy, you lose it, right? So if you have any energy at the end of battle, you have to tap 1 energy, right? But if you have 0 energy at the end of battle, you don't have to tap anything, per the ruling that came out. So this card's really good. It's basically a defensive unyielding spirit trunks, free. And it generates a lot of value. It replaces itself. It draws a card. Cool thing to note is you can use it offensively when you're trying to go for game, and then you just like, hey, if you have that energy tapped, you can combo with that energy that's tapped for a free 10k draw card, right? So it's really good on both turns, especially when you try to push damage when you know energy doesn't matter at a certain point in the game. It's really good in that part. It's the core focus of the deck itself, and you'll see the reason why. Now the cards you want to combo that have 10k, right? I'm going to show Boujack 8-drop. Then we have Zangia the Evildoer, and we have Boujack the Evildoer, right? These cards are all really cool. Zangia the Evildoer is when you combo from your energy area only, you get to draw a card, right? So if you combo with this, with Galactic Buster, you get the free 5k, and then you draw 2, right? So basically, even if you don't use the energy, you basically paid 1 energy to draw 2 cards for a 5k combo, which is really good. Next, you have Boujack the Evildoer, right? This is a 1k. So yeah, Zangia, good thing to note is it's a 1 mana, 1 energy, 5k combo. Same thing with Boujack, 1 energy, 5k combo, right? So if this is in your energy, same thing, you can tap and play it as well. The cool thing about this card is a 4-drop, 20k dual attacker, right? So that's already good stats as is. If you pay 2 energy and after you combo with this card, either from your energy or your hand, that's good to note because you can combo from your hand, which happens all the time. At the end of battle, you pay 2 energy, play them. When you play them, you bottom deck any threat. It doesn't ignore barrier, sadly, but hey, we can't have it all, right? So you pay 2 energy, bottom deck any battle card on your opponent's turn or on your own turn, depending on what turn you play it. So the cool thing to do this, right? So if your energy is like this, right? So if you Galactic Buster, combo the 5k, you draw a card. At the end of battle, tap 2 energy, you play the Boujack, right? And then you basically bottom deck 2 of the threats. Or, I'm sorry, bottom deck 1 of the threats. The cool thing is that basically when you have this in your energy in rest mode, or just when you have this energy in your energy at all, it basically costs 1 because you really want to use the energy first, and then you want to, here you go. You really want to use the energy first before you Galactic Buster, just so you can get the most use out of your energy. And we have other ways to use your energy as well. The last card that we have that synergizes with comboing from the drop area is Boujack on a rampage, right? So if he's in your energy, you can combo him with Galactic, right? But you pay 4 energy. When you pay 4 energy, you automatically you draw another card, right? So you pay 4, draw another card, and then you bottom deck one of their battle cards, right? This is all at the end of battle, right? So you don't actually, so it technically has deflect, right? Because even if you were to cold bloodlust this or counterplay an 8-drop, whatever one you would want to do, I guess, you would still get the effect because it actually happens at the end of battle after you tap 4. It's not an auto when it comes into play. So something to note on that, right? So it doesn't matter that it doesn't have deflect. It's a dual attack, double strike, 30k body, which is beefy. When you play it, it comes into play rest mode. Next time they attack with a battle card, you get to tap one of their energy and you get to untap one of your own. So it only triggers when they attack with a battle card on their next time, and it's only once per turn. But it's a 30k dual attack, double strike that you can play on your opponent's turn and bottom deck a threat and try to swing the tempo back in your turn. It's really good. And I'll just put these like this, just so you guys can see this. Next, I want to go over unisons because, well, we have to awaken, right? And then to awaken, you need to play unison. I'll make this look there. There you go. Right now, we have 3 Gogeta unison. This card is absolutely amazing. From what you might known from my Soul Striker Genema list that we main deck for. This deck isn't any different. It plays 3 of these. The main reason why is that it swings twice, 20k dual attacker, right? And it's -1 bottom or bounces 2 back to hand. Super relevant. And you get to play a skillless battle card from your hand. So you potentially get 3 attacks for the cost of 3 energy, which is really 1 because your Soul Striker will probably untap 2 the turn you play it, right? And it lets you provide swings at battle cards before you even need to commit to bouncing them. So it puts your opponent in a real bind if they actually want to combo out to actually bounce them, right? So they potentially could just be trading cards in their hand to protect them that they'll just end up being bounced back to their hand. So it kind of puts them in a weird position. I don't really like Baby Unison all that much just because it's +2 is draw card, right? And then if your opponent already has 2 or 3 battle cards on board and they commit to swinging at it, right, it's just going to die or it's just going to lose counters, and just drawing a card every turn isn't good enough right now. It's -5 is really good, but the time that it's relevant is that you're probably already going to win the game, or you just created this ultimate scenario, -5, Foo Shrouded, and Baby 5-drop, etc., which is super overkill and harder to do than you might think. So 4 unisons isn't always the right number, and like statistically, it's like, yeah, it's kind of running it close if you only run 4. So that's why we want to run 1 Raditz Giant Force. This is the next best 3-drop unison. It's actually a mini baby unison because every time you activate blocker, you get to untap it, right? So it's a 19k 3 specified cost blocker. Every time you the first time you activate blocker, you switch back to active mode. So it's already a 2-for-1, right? So 1, 2. It's +0, draws a card. You draw a card, which is cool. Yeah, we like drawing cards. And it's -2 is somewhat relevant. I haven't used it yet, but you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, return it to their owner's hand, and at the end of your turn, switch up to one of your blue energy to active mode. Then your leader can actually untap them for being a blocker as well. So you can still do the -2 to have the double block if you really want to, if they don't combo, because you're probably going to be at 1 marker. I haven't used a -2, but it is like a mini Boo unison in that sense, that it gets multiple blocks out of the way. It's just basically for ratios to make sure you hit a unison, because this is better than not having a unison at all. So you want to definitely have it. Next for unisons, we have, hey, speak of the devil, we have 2 of the Boo unisons. So this is Majin Buu, a Assault of the Agents of Destruction. Man, that's a long title. So this is actually a 4-drop unison, right? So the turn you play it, you won't actually awaken, right? Because it's looking for a specified cost of 3. So just keep that in mind. However, it is really good because he's a double strike blocker. +0, draw a card. At the end of your turn, untap an energy, untap the unison. Perfect, right? So you draw a card, you get to have blocker, and then your double strike, already amazing. His -1 is what makes him kind of snapped. His -1 basically says when your opponent attacks with a battle card, you can -1 marker and bottom deck any battle card on the field, right? It doesn't get around barrier, but he can bottom deck any battle card. Doesn't go back to hand, doesn't go on top of the deck or anything, goes at the bottom. Amazing. It's really good, puts your opponent in a real bind. Just note that it only triggers when a battle card attacks, right? So if your opponent swings leaders in unisons at it, right, you can't actually trigger its -1. So just keep that in a note. And that's where you prioritize certain negates and things like that if you need to protect it. This card is amazing. The reason why this is in the deck, right, is typically when you play the Gogeta Unison or your 3-drop, there's not a lot of negates in the deck, which you'll see. Typically, they're going to attack into it 2-3 times. It's going to die, right? It's going to just go in the battle area. And you have more in the deck just to play it, or you just like, hey, I don't really need a specified 3 cost anymore. I'll just play a 4-drop, right? Because if you're a blue deck and you're not playing a Unison on your turn, you're probably falling behind because God Sealing, Heroic Prospects are all your good cards, and they're all enablers based off having Unisons on board. And you only need a specified 3 cost on turn 3. So that's why there's a Boo in the deck, and he does really good. Untaps energy, right? So you get to have energy untapped, which synergizes with Galactic Busted already. And then you can even combo one from hand and then Galactic Buster after, because sometimes you have like 3 energy open. So you can do one from hand and one from energy on the same turn. And your opponent's like, oh man, I just overcommitted and I just lost the game, kind of thing. Next, we're going to go over the enablers for the Unisons, right? I have 4 God Sealings. This is basically your counterplay, right? If you have 2 or more markers, if they're trying to play a card without deflect, you get to bounce back in their hand. Really good against things that are negating on your turn, like Topo or Heroic Prospect or things like that, or the new King Cold card that acts like Topo. Can bounce those back. Really good against like Mecha Frieza, right? Even like the Aegis version, right? If they activate Aegis and they're trying to play Boragamos or Bojacks, right? The first one is usually going to get God Sealing. So the Aegis is basically matching the trunks that got sealing, so they basically have to have more energy to actually do extend their place, which can kind of put them in a weird position too. So we don't play heroic prospects in the main. They're actually in the side deck, and that's because it's really meta dependent. They're only really good against Dark Brawly, somewhat against Aggro Sin and Red Brawly, but you can just side them in. And then yeah, I just haven't found that I actually need them in the main deck. Next, I want to go over the super combos. We have 2 Vegeta super combos, which is really good, right? We get the bottom deck. We're very 10k heavy, and we're very unison heavy. So we want some way to bottom deck the cards that you need to get rid of, your multiples of unisons or your 1 energy combo cards, and make sure you filter your hand appropriately to draw 2 new cards. Next is Zeno Unison. Zeno Edge of Space, really good super combo. The cool thing about this card is synergizes super well with Galactic Buster, right? So the turns that you have Galactic Buster in your energy, it basically is your 5th and 6th copy, right? Because if you have a Bojack in your hand, say we have this is your energy, right? Even one of this is tapped. You can Zeno, right? Put this back into hand, or actually, you would really be like this. You can Zeno, Galactic Buster back into hand, put the Bojack in the energy. Right now, you super plus because 1, you put the Bojack in your energy. 2, you put the Galactic Buster in your hand, right? Then you can use the energy defensively for whatever reason. You'll see a good reason why later. And then you can Galactic Buster, untap that, and then do your thing. So it super synergizes the deck. It's a very good enabler. After you see your first Galactic Buster, Zeno super combo becomes that much better, right? Also, I found that it's good that it kind of declunks your hand if you need be. You can put Galactic Buster back in your hand, but then you can also put Unisons in your energy if you have too many or whatnot. So it's a good way to filter stuff out of your hand and kind of make sure your hand quality is not bad, or you have a way to combo out of certain attacks if need be. Next, we have 4 Senzu Bean. Senzu Bean is really good in the deck because this deck is, as you can tell, a combo deck, right? It lives in the combo stuff. With Galactic Buster, Evildoers, On a Rampage, etc. And the more energy, the more plays you can do, right? And the more things you can able to do on your turn, right? So a lot of decks that live on your opponent's turn struggle to play things on your own turn. Soul Striker doesn't really have that issue because you get to untap 2 energy. So anything you commit to, it basically costs 2 less for the turn. So your Boo Unisons, your Gogetas really only cost 2 less, and then it still leaves you enough energy to react to your opponent's turn. So you're never really committed to that turn, and it's basically free aggression as over the course of the game, which starts adding up and kind of piles onto the opponent. 3 Dimension Magics, basically Sparking Negate. If you have 5 in the drop, you can take a life to untap 2, blue energy. You only need 3, 4. You don't really need to see it the first 2, 3 turns of the game. Really good with Bojacks, obviously, right? Because if you just have one Sparky negate, he's just like, oh, I have 3 energy open, and then you Galactic Buster your 4th energy, which is him, and then hey, your D Magic just equal to free. Well, not free, but 1 life, 30k double striker, dual attacker with crazy effects on it. So definitely 3 makes a lot of sense. I really want to go to 4. If you need more negates, you feel like you need more negates, that's where you would want Heroic Prospects or the Chilled Army Reinforcements, which I'll go over. Next, we're going to go over the skillless engine, right? So we have Gogeta, which can play a skillless from your hand, right? So we have 4 skillless battle cards. This deck draws a obscene amount of cards, right? Your your leader draws 2 when he awakens. Galactic Buster draws a card. Zangief draws you an extra card. Bojack draws you an extra card. Super combos draw you cards. Boo draws you cards. The deck draws you cards, right? So you're gonna probably see one in your hand turn 3, which is okay, right? Because you could free play it with Gogeta and have more attacks into battle cards or into leader, whatever the case scenario can provide. Good thing to note about Gogeta: when you have a Saiyan in rest mode, a mono blue one, you can he's a deadly defender effect, so you can't actually deal damage to your leader unless this is gone or your leader is gone, right? So you have 4 of these. This is just free attacks and good stuff. A card that enables this card is the SS2 Sungohan Astonishing Strike. It's such a beautiful card. So this card is a 10 cost, triple strike. If you have a skillless in your battle area, you get to ramp it, right? So if you have 4 energy, your opponent has to have 3 energy. That's good to know. Then you ramp your skillless battle card in the battle area, right? So you pay 4, then you have 1 untap with the skillless, which is cool because it's a triple strike, and then you can blow up a battle card in your energy to switch it to active mode and bottom deck their entire battle area, right? So if your opponent has 3 or 4 battle cards, it doesn't ignore barrier, so it doesn't get around barrier. It's a theme of the deck, as you can see. And nothing really gets around barrier. And Gohan bottom decks all the threats, and he goes to active mode. So he's a 4 energy, triple strike, dual attack, bottom decks the board. He's deflect, by the way. He does everything the deck would want as a finisher in a way to push the game or push the envelope for your opponent to respond. Really good against green decks because if they live off dormants or they try to live off blockers or whatnot, you can clear the blockers with Gogeta or you with his or his -1 and clear blockers, and then you get 2 attacks, so it really forces out negates. Or if your opponent is on dormant type strategies, right? They can't dormant this because if they dormant it, they're probably going to take 3 damage because you don't want a -2 from your hand and out combo it in the same time. So it's really good against green decks, and it's a really good card. Definitely should be in the deck. Next, what other way do we have to get skills cards back in the battle area? Well, we have Goku, Nimbus Master, right? So this is a good way to spend energy on your opponent's turn in the combo step and get value out of it, right? You're going to find this deck is super energy efficient. Sometimes you have more energy than you can spend. It's crazy, I know, but it is very true. This is a good card to tap an energy, then you can Galactic Buster that energy that you tapped, usually Evildoer or Zangief, then you can go into your Bojacks and stuff like that. So it's a very good card just to flood the board too, and it enables your Gohan because it brings in the skillless, but brings out your 10 drop. So a lot of synergy there. 10k. You don't want to charge this. It doesn't work with Galactic Buster, so it's only really good in your hand, but a really good card. You should definitely keep it. Next, I want to give a shout out to Matthew Coombs on Saiyan Instincts. So I brought Saiyan Instincts. I was like, man, this deck felt like it was missing something, right? And I was like, man, I kind of want to draw more cards, right? Because if you don't see Galactic Buster, you don't see Unisons, you really want a good turn 2 play. Well, the best thing the deck can do is just draw more cards, right? If you don't find your pieces and you don't have a way to tutor your pieces, let's just draw cards, right? Because eventually you're going to hit it. Because when you awaken and then when you start taking life, you're just increasing your chances to find your pieces. That's where Saiyan Instincts comes. I was always fighting between this and Zangief in the main, and Matt was like, hey, just put both in the deck. I'm like, bro, you're genius. So that's where it kind of came into that. It's like, hey, just put both in the deck. The deck draws the same amount of cards because the the turns you combo this, say on turn 2, you know, or turn 1, you combo this, and then you pay 2, draw 2, then you combo Galactic Buster, you drew another 2, and then you can combo Nimbus Cloud to then get bodies on board because you have energy to use. So you just drew 4 cards and you protected life, so you're at like, you know, 7, 8 life, and you basically netted cards from your deck, right? So every time you combo, right, you're drawing cards from your deck, but then also your opponent has to commit more resources to actually trying to beating you, right? They can't just not attack your leader, right? There's only a couple strategies that are good at that. Most decks actually have to attack you to actually enable their decks to try to win the game, and you punish them for doing that. Saiyan Instincts, I'm thinking about putting a fourth Saiyan Instincts actually for a God Sealing. Because God Sealing is only good on turn 3 or later, whereas Saiyan Instincts is good as early as turn 2, but it scales super well during the game. And I felt like sometimes I wanted to see more of it. Sometime in the theory is right if you pay 2 to draw 2, you'll probably find more of your God Ceilings because you're increasing the consistency of hitting this, which will then let you find the God Ceiling. So something I want to test out is having 4 Saiyan Instincts and only 3 God Ceilings, which is pretty cool in itself. Same thing with Zangia, right? I'm thinking about making Boujack 8-drop on the second one here because Boujack draws a card as well after you pay 4. Zangia draws a card when you combo with it. So after turn 4, Boujack just becomes better because it's super easy to resolve, whereas Zangia is really good in the first 3 turns of the game. So I'm struggling to find out the correct ratios there. It might be 2-2, still might keep it the same. I just felt like I wanted one more Boujack, but it was just hard because I really wanted to keep it a 50 card deck. We have one Baby Golden Avenger. It's Winter Stamp. Woohoo! So this is counter 30k triple strike. If you they play a counter, you get the counter, kind of like Swift Retaliation Cooler, right, or Battering Laser, which was banned. When it comes into play, auto bottom deck a card, ignoring barrier this time, and draws a card, right? So anything has any battle card on the field, not indestructible, but any battle card on the field, ignoring barrier, bottom deck and draw a card. Also, it's a counterplay for 7 cost or less, which is a lot of things, which you can do, right? There's times that I could counterplay 5, and then you can have God Sealing still up for another counterplay too, which then you'd still get the auto, bottom deck and draw a card, and then counterplay the battle card they're trying to play. So all good stuff. Really good card. Even if they're on a Zelzeno stat, right? Zelzeno strat, you can play Golden against it, or even Booze. -1 is just super good against it. So something to note there. Fu, Shrouded. This card is really good in the slow matchups, right? And this deck can technically go the long game. So this card is really good in trying to finish a game, and you just need 10 cards in the drop, pay 6 energy. Basically, it blanks all their cards. They can't activate skills for the entire turn and on their turn, besides leader skills, right? So their leader skills they can still do, but they can't activate any other skills, including Unisons, by the way, for your turn, for the remainder of your turn and their turn. So it's a great way to finish a game or just turn the corner and just make the game an extreme blowout. Best card in blue, Baby Hatchiyak, Saiyan Destroyer. Absolutely disgusting. 40k, single strike. Single strike. You gotta be kidding me. No, I'm kidding. If you have 3 energy, you get to pitch any card from your hand, aka you can pitch Saiyan Instincts. It doesn't have to be blue. You get a 40k single striker, and then your opponent can't attack for the rest of the turn. So as soon as you play it, it's free, negate, stop the rest of their turn. They can't attack, which is insane, right? So it's 3 energy, it's free, but just wait. The only things you have to really watch out for is Baby right here or Swift Retaliation Cooler. That's the only counters of this. Oh, and the Boo SCR, I guess. But you could just make sure once they tap a certain amount of energy or they swing with leader like Boo SCR, you know the times where you can actually play this card safely and just basically stop their tempo for the entire term, and the game totally shifts back in your favor. Obviously, if you don't have it, blue is going to not feel as great. You really need this against aggro decks. It's really good. Next, I want to go over the side deck. I'm going to make a little space. I'll use this top row for the side. First, Heroic Prospects, right? 3 Heroic Prospects, really good against Dark Brawly, really good against Aggro Sin, Red Brawly, anything that attacks with greater than their energy. It's a 1 cost, 3 drop 15k. It reduces its cost by 2 to make it a 1 cost. If you have a Unison in play, right? So if you have a Unison in play, it costs 1. And if they attack with something that's greater than their energy, that they bottom deck 2 cards. Really good card, but it's very matchup specific. That's why it's not in the main deck, and it's not absolutely necessary in there. Next, I have 3 Chilled Army Reinforcements. Right, so Chilled Army Reinforcements is a really cool negate. If you have 5 or less life, it's free. You could just have to take a life, and then negates the attack and plays a body 10k 10k blocker. Sorry, 10k blocker on the board. Right, so if you're a 5 life, take a life. Token comes on the field, 10k blocker for the turn. So it's basically a 2-for-1 for 1 energy or for 0 energy, but taking a life. It lets you able to protect Unisons as well. So that if you're at 5 life and then you play a Unison, and they're like an aggro deck or whatnot, and they start swinging at Unison and they're trying to control the game, this lets you swing the game back to your favor and lets you kind of gain that advantage. Really good against aggro decks, Vegeta. Keep in mind it is Koichikai target, so you don't have to warp 2 if you do that. So keep in mind, really good against any other aggro decks like Red Broly, Aggro Sin, maybe even Mecha Frieza if they're on like the Cell Zeno strat and you just want another out to it. Reboot Gohan, really good against that, against Yolohan, because this is just 2-for-1 for their negate, free negate their leader, blocker on board for their other attack too. So that's the main reason why we have it. You could play the Janemba card against Gohan, the Janemba Xeno card, but this card's just generically better and it's more relevant across the board. Next is Vegeta, Savior of the Future, 1-drop double strikers. So this card is going to be going in against decks that don't attack you, right? So this deck functions when people attack you. There's a few decks out there still that don't attack you. Invoker, Cell Surge, maybe even cooler if they really don't want to attack you, but they kind of still have to win the game because they have no way to win the game without attacking you. This lets you do damage, take your own life, get a 15k double strike. This turns on your deck because you have an energy tapped, and then you can activate your Galactic Buster, right? So if you have an energy tap, you can then Galactic Buster and then kind of swing back tempo, and you kind of and you force them to try to remove this off board, or you can even Nimbus Master as well. So things like that kind of like early threat to have them having them attack you is actually really good. Next is Sungohan, Unbelievable Might. This card's really good. So this card basically says if you have a skillless battle card in play, right here, you pay 1 energy, you get to play them. You don't have to bounce the skillless card back to our hand. That was like a misconception with the card. I was like, when I saw it like on a stream, I was like, hey, this guy didn't bounce a card bounce the skillless back to your hand. I'm like, I read it. It's like, oh, you don't actually have to bounce the battle card back to your hand. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So you just pay 1 to play them, right? As long as you have a skillless battle card to play. 15k blocker. What's cool about this, when he comes into play, he has an auto. When you play the card, you bottom deck a 3-drop or less, ignoring barrier, right? So SS4, the Son Goku Annihilator, right? That adds extra energy to your extra cards. You would think that that card is a kind of like a silver bullet to this deck, but it's actually not bad. 1, because you have this card in the side, so you can always side it in. 2, you're super energy efficient already. That sometimes paying the extra energy cost is like, hey, having the ruling going against you for Galactic Buster, like doing the reverse ruling, which it is what it is, and they still have to pay 3 energy for a 20k single strike. Usually you could make more efficient plays after that and kind of punish them for that. And if they do that on turn 3, they're going to put themselves well behind. They basically need a Boujack on board prior to playing it, or they're going to be in a world of hurt. And if you just have this card, you just remove it anyway. So they spent 3 energy and I just removed it for 1 energy, and they're like, oh, that feels bad. One thing I did in the tournament, by the way, it also removes Slug 3-drop as well, ignoring barrier. There's a lot of ways to draw cards, obviously, without your leader skill. So this gets rid of Slug as well because it ignores barrier. Also, Invoker Vegeta gets rid of that as well, which could be perceived as a bad matchup for this deck. I still have to play test against it, but so you can have 1-drop double strikers. And when they play the Vegeta, then you can actually remove the Vegeta for 1 energy. Force is basically them to tap out to counterplay it, or if they tapped out for whatever reason, then you have it. Then we have Secret Identity Mass Sand. We have the one of, basically when Fu Shrouded, you don't want it for aggro matchups, you put this in. I would probably change the main deck to put Shrouded in the side and put this in the main, just because the worst matchups for this deck are aggro decks when you're on the draw. That was my 2 losses for the webcam, and I just dropped. I went 3-2, but I lost by 5k against King Vegeta red-green, and I was on the draw, and I lost the Vegeta on the draw, and I had Shrouded in my hand, but I could have overwhelmed this, and I could have basically swing the game back in my favor because I could have got rid of Kai's, or you can get rid of their board and not having to commit so many resources, or just having the 5K combo in your hand, the 0-5. So it's really relevant in that regards. And yeah, so I would definitely probably put this in the main over Shrouded. Because I think another change that I would probably make is I have one Turning the Tide in the side. So Turning the Tide is amazing. I actually put this in the deck because of Blue Baby, which is really cool because Blue Baby, they let you be, the game's going to go on forever, right? You need a way to win the game. This is the best way to win the game. And then you have lots of ways establishing the board, as we could kind of went over earlier with Galactic Buster and Nimbus. And Baby has to attack you, right? They have to draw cards, they have to swing, right? And they have to net value. And if they don't, then they're going to lose the advantage over the course of the game. But then if they do, then you can play battle cards, and then you can actually just stop swinging at Blue Baby, right? So if you don't want them to get a board, just don't swing. It's fine. If you have this in your hand, you're going to go to turn 7. If you have 3 or 4 battle cards on field with a Unison, and you get to turn 7 and play this, even if they Baby 5 and bottom deck it, or UI 4-drop, whatever, as long as they don't have the Black Jiren 2-cost card, you're fine, because your board state will bring them down to 4-0 without them having any cards in hand, regardless of this swing. So if you're able to resolve this with a board state, then you're good. Then you'll be fine. And I think about wanting to try to main deck one of these, just because if you're playing against a Blue Baby, or you're playing against something that's slow, if Fu Shrouded is relevant in that matchup, probably Turning the Tide is going to be relevant in that matchup. So that's why I would do the switch, right? Because turning the Fu Shrouded and Turning Time will probably yield you the same results, and then sometimes Shrouded is hard to do on turn 6. And if you're able to get to turn 6, getting to turn 7 is probably not going to be that much harder. So then it'll still be relevant. And then Secret Identity would help you in the aggro matchups better than any other card that I take out for the Turning the Tide. So that would be like the main changes I would made. For the best of one, the only thing I did was I put in one Turning the Tide for the 10-drop just to do that. That is the only thing I did for best of one. I'd probably maybe make a slight changes. We'll see going forward. That is the deck profile. Want to give shout outs to PPG, FOE. Give a shout out to the boys, 3XG boys. Love you boys. And I'll see you next time. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, and we'll talk again soon. Bye, everybody.